Have you ever thought how to prove that two triangles are congruent? Come, join me and let's explore. I am Teacher Mel, and I will be your guide in answering your module for this week. Today, we will focus on proving statements on triangle congruence. So, be ready with your paper, pen, and self-learning module. This lesson is intended for grade 8 learners. It focuses on proving statements on congruence of triangles using the two-column method. It also includes the applications of the definition of terms, triangle congruence, and postulates that you have previously learned.
The following are the learning objectives of the lesson. First is to recall the definitions, properties, theorems, and postulates involving triangle congruence. Second is to prove that two triangles are congruent using the two-column proof, and third is to write the statements and the corresponding reasons in proving congruent triangles.
Before we proceed with our lesson, let us check what you already know about our topic.
Read and understand the questions carefully, then choose the letter of the correct answer. In Figure 1, triangle PON is congruent to triangle SOM. What is the side corresponding to line segment PO? Letter A, line segment SO. Letter B, line segment OM. Letter C, line segment ON. And letter D, line segment SM. Number 2, in Figure 1, line segment PO is congruent to line segment SO, and line segment ON is congruent to line segment OM. Which triangle congruence theorem or postulate is appropriate to conclude that triangle PON is congruent to triangle SOM? Letter A, side, side, side. Letter B, side, angle, side. Letter C, side, side, angle. And letter D, angle, side, angle. Number 3, in Figure 2, triangle FCE is congruent to triangle FCA by what postulate or theorem? Letter A, angle, side, angle. Letter B, leg, leg. Letter C, side, angle, side. And letter D, side, side, side. Number 4, if triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DAF, which segment is congruent to line segment AB? Letter A, line segment BC. Letter B, line segment AC. Letter C, line segment DE. And letter D, line segment EB. Number 5, in Figure 3, name the corresponding congruent parts as marked that will make each pair of triangles congruent by side, angle, side. Letter A, line segment BY is congruent to line segment NR. Angle BOY is congruent to angle NOR, and line segment BO is congruent to line segment NO. Letter B, Line segment BO is congruent to line segment NO. Angle BOY is congruent to angle NOR, and line segment RO is congruent to line segment YO. Letter C. Line segment YO is congruent to line segment OR. Line segment BO is congruent to line segment ON, and angle BOY is congruent to angle NOR. Letter D. Angle B is congruent to angle N. Line segment BO is congruent to line segment NO, and line segment OY is congruent to line segment OR. Pause the video and continue to answer 6 to 10. So let us check your answers. Number 1 A, number 2 B, number 3 D, number 4 C, number 5 B, number 6 B, number 7 E, number 8 H, number 9 A, and number 10 J. So previously you have learned about congruent triangles, and two triangles are congruent if and only if their vertices can be paired so that corresponding sides are congruent and corresponding angles are congruent. Take note that corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. You have also learned about the properties of congruence. So first property is reflexive property. So for all angles A, angle A is congruent to angle A. This means that an angle is congruent to itself. The second property is symmetric property. For all angles A and B, if angle A is congruent to angle B, then angle B is congruent to angle A. The order of congruence does not matter. The third property is transitive property. For any angles A, B, and C, if angle A is congruent to angle B and angle B is congruent to angle C, then angle A is congruent to angle C. If two angles are both congruent to a third angle, then the first two angles are also congruent. Additional to what you have learned are the triangle congruence postulates and theorems. So we will first have the postulates. So you have side, side, side postulate. If three sides of a triangle are congruent respectively to the three sides of another triangle, then the two triangles are congruent. The second postulate is side angle side postulate. If two sides in the included angle of one triangle are congruent respectively to two sides in the included angle of another triangle, then the two triangles are congruent. The third postulate is angle side angle postulate. If two angles in the included side of one triangle are congruent respectively to two angles in the included side of another triangle, then the two triangles are congruent. Moving on to the theorems on triangle congruence, we have Side-angle theorem. If two angles in the non-included side of one triangle are congruent to two angles in the non-included side of another triangle, then the two triangles are congruent. The second theorem is the leg-leg theorem. If two legs of one right triangle are congruent respectively to the two legs of another right triangle, then the triangles are congruent. The third theorem is the leg-acute angle theorem. If a leg and an acute angle of one triangle are congruent respectively to a leg and an acute angle of another right triangle, then the triangles are congruent. The fourth theorem is the hypotenuse leg theorem. If the hypotenuse and a leg of one right triangle are congruent respectively to the hypotenuse and a leg of another right triangle, then the triangles are congruent. The fifth theorem is the hypotenuse acute angle theorem. If the hypotenuse and an acute angle of one right triangle are congruent respectively to the hypotenuse and an acute angle of another right triangle, then the triangles are congruent. Before we begin our lesson, let us answer first the following activity. So the instruction is: study the given figure, then complete the table by providing the appropriate reason in each statement. Choose your answers from the box. Given are line segment BE is congruent to line segment LO, and line segment BO is congruent to line segment LE. Prove that triangle BEL is congruent to triangle LOB. So let us complete the following table by choosing our answers from the box. So statement number 1, line segment BE is congruent to line segment LO, and line segment BO is congruent to line segment LE. The reason for that statement is letter B, given, since that is the given information. Number 2, line segment BL is congruent to line segment BL. The reason for that statement is letter C, reflexive property, since line segment BL is congruent to itself. And number 3, triangle BEL is congruent to triangle LOB. The reason for that statement is letter A, side, side, side. The table in the previous activity is an example of a two-column proof. In geometry, a two-column proof is a table which consists of a list of statements and the reasons that we know the statements are true. The statements are listed in a column on the left, and the reasons for which the statements can be made are listed in the right column. So here are some examples on proving that two triangles are congruent using the two-column method. So example number 1, given are angle D is congruent to angle C. Angle J is congruent to angle T, and line segment OG is congruent to line segment AT. Prove that triangle DOG is congruent to triangle CAT. So the following is the proof that triangle DOG is congruent to triangle CAT. So statement number 1. Angle D is congruent to angle C. The reason for that statement is given, since it is one of the given information. Number 2. Angle J is congruent to angle T. The reason for that is also given. Number 3. Line segment OG is congruent to line segment AT. The reason for that statement is also given. Number 4. Triangle DOG is congruent to triangle CAT. The reason for that statement is angle-angle, side or side-angle-angle congruence theorem. Example number 2. Given R, angle E is congruent to angle V, and line segment RN is a perpendicular bisector of line segment EV. Prove that triangle ENR is congruent to triangle VNR. So statement number 1. Angle E is congruent to angle V, and line segment RN is a perpendicular bisector of line segment EV. The reason for that statement is given. Number 2. Line segment EN is congruent to line segment NV. The reason is definition of segment bisector. Since line segment RN is a perpendicular bisector of line segment EV, it bisects the line segment EV into two equal parts. That's why line segment EN is congruent to line segment NV. Number 3. Angle ENR and angle VNR are right angles. The reason for that statement is definition of perpendicular lines, since perpendicular lines form right angles. Number 4. Angle ENR is congruent to angle VNR. The reason for that is right angles are congruent. Since all right angles measure 90 degrees, they are all congruent. And number 5. Triangle ENR is congruent to triangle VNR. The reason for that statement is angle-side-angle congruence postulate or leg acute angle theorem.
After learning how to prove that triangles are congruent using the two-column method, it's now your turn to do it.
Prove that the triangles are congruent by providing the appropriate reason to each given statement. Given R, angle X is congruent to angle R, angle O is congruent to angle A, and line segment BO is congruent to line segment CA. Prove that triangle BOX is congruent to triangle CAR.
To sum it up, complete the following phrases.
First, my learning experience in this module enabled me to learn. Second, I have realized that. And third, I therefore commit to. Prove the congruency of the triangles using the two-column method. Given R, line segment NM is congruent to line segment OP. Line segment OP is perpendicular to line segment MP, and line segment NM is perpendicular to line segment MP. Prove that triangle MNP is congruent to triangle POM.
To check your understanding about proving statements on triangle congruence, do the given post activity.
Read and understand the questions carefully, then choose the letter of the correct answer. Number 1. Using the markings on the figure, you can prove that triangle WYZ and triangle ZXW are congruent by what theorem or postulate? Letter A. Angle-angle side congruence theorem. Letter B. Side-angle side congruence postulate. Letter C. Leg-leg congruence theorem. And letter D. Hypotenuse leg congruence theorem. Number 2. Which of the following is not a postulate or theorem on triangle congruence? Letter A. Side, side, side. Letter B. Side, angle, side. Letter C. Side, side, angle. And letter D. Angle, side, angle. Number 3. Given the corresponding congruent parts of triangle ABC and triangle DAF, what postulate or theorem can prove their congruency? Letter A. Angle, side, angle. Letter B. Leg, leg. Letter C. Side, angle, side. Letter D. Side, side, side. Number 4. Name the corresponding congruent parts as marked that will make the two triangles congruent by side, angle, side postulate. Letter A. Line segment AC is congruent to line segment AC. Angle ACB is congruent to angle CAD, and line segment CB is congruent to line segment AD. Letter B. Line segment AC is congruent to line segment BC. Angle CBA is congruent to angle ADC, and line segment CB is congruent to line segment AD. Letter C. Line segment BC is congruent to line segment AC. Angle BAC is congruent to angle DAC, and line segment BA is congruent to line segment AD. Letter D. Line segment AC is congruent to line segment AC. Angle BAC is congruent to angle DAC, and line segment BA is congruent to line segment AD. Number 5. Based from item 4, what concept is involved to prove the congruency of the two triangles by side, angle, side postulate? Letter A, vertical angles. Letter B, reflexive property. Letter C, symmetric property. And letter D, angle bisector. Pause the video and continue to answer 6 to 10. Let us check your answers. Number 1, D. Number 2, C. Number 3, C. Number 4, A. Number 5, B. Number 6, C. Number 7, B. Number 8, D. Number 9, A. And number 10, B.
To further understand the lesson, do the additional activity.
Do the task on page 13 of your module. Refer to the given rubric for the activity.
Well done, learners! You did it! See you on our next lesson.